Natalie Westbrook had dined at the Heritage Room dozens of times. As CEO of Westbrook Global Investments, she frequently entertained clients in the elegant restaurant with its warm lighting, pristine white tablecloths, and reputation for impeccable service. But tonight wasn't about business. Tonight was supposed to be special. Just her and her daughter Charlotte, celebrating the 8-year-old's birthday with her favorite meal. At 41, Natalie had achieved everything she'd set out to accomplish professionally. Her company managed billions in assets. Her name appeared regularly in business magazines, and she'd broken through ceilings that had seemed impenetrable when she started. But sitting across from Charlotte in her festive red velvet dress, watching her daughter's small hands move in careful signs, Natalie felt the familiar ache of inadequacy. Charlotte was deaf. Profoundly, completely deaf since birth. And despite Natalie's best efforts, the top specialists, the most expensive schools, every resource money could buy, she still struggled to truly communicate with her own daughter. Natalie had learned basic sign language, of course. She could manage simple conversations. But her schedule was demanding. And despite her best intentions, she often found herself relying on Charlotte's interpreter or her nanny, Sarah, to bridge the communication gap. Tonight, Sarah had the evening off, and Natalie had been determined to manage on her own. It wasn't going well. Charlotte had been trying to tell her something about school, her hands moving in complicated patterns that Natalie couldn't quite follow. She'd asked Charlotte to slow down, to repeat herself, and she could see the frustration building in her daughter's eyes. That look that said, "Once again, Mommy doesn't understand me." "I'm sorry, sweetheart," Natalie signed clumsily. One more time? Charlotte's shoulders slumped. She picked up her crayons, the restaurant had provided them, with the children's menu, and began drawing instead, retreating into her own world the way she always did. When communication became too difficult, Natalie felt like crying. Some birthday celebration this was turning out to be. That's when she noticed them at a nearby table. A man, probably late 30s with dark hair and an easy smile, wearing
really
a casual gray t-shirt. Beside him sat a young boy, maybe 10 years old, in a bright blue and yellow dinosaur shirt. But what caught Natalie's attention was the way they were communicating. They were signing. Fluently, rapidly, their hands flying in animated conversation, both of them grinning at something the boy had said. The father, Natalie assumed he was the father, signed with the natural fluency of someone who thought in that language, not someone laboriously translating from English, in their head the way Natalie did. Charlotte had noticed them too. She'd stopped drawing and was watching the boy with the intense focus she reserved for things that truly interested her. Then, with the fearless curiosity of children, Charlotte waved at the boy. The boy waved back, his face lighting up. He signed something to his father, who glanced over at Charlotte and Natalie's table. The man smiled warmly and signed something to Charlotte directly. He asked what your name is, the man said aloud to Natalie, clearly noticing her confused expression. Charlotte, delighted to be spoken to in her own language, signed back enthusiastically. The boy's response was immediate, his hands moving in rapid conversation with Charlotte. Within seconds, the two children were deep in discussion, and Charlotte was smiling, really, smiling, in a way Natalie hadn't seen all evening. The man stood and walked over to their table, his son trailing behind him, still signing to Charlotte about something involving dinosaurs. "I'm sorry to interrupt your dinner," the man said, speaking and signing simultaneously in that effortless way Natalie envied. "I'm Trevor Hoffman, and this is my son, Lucas. We couldn't help but notice you signing. And Lucas doesn't often meet other deaf kids in the wild, so to speak." He smiled apologetically. He gets excited. "Please don't apologize," Natalie said, then attempted to sign it as well, her hands clumsy. "I'm Natalie, and this is Charlotte. It's her birthday today." Trevor immediately signed this to Lucas, who brightened and signed an enthusiastic happy birthday to Charlotte, complete with the traditional birthday song in ASL. Charlotte giggled, an actual sound, something she rarely made, and signed back rapidly. Natalie caught maybe a third of it, something about dinosaurs and school and cake. Lucas is telling her about his dinosaur collection. Trevor translated, noticing Natalie's struggle to follow, and asking what kind of birthday cake she's getting. "May we join you for a moment?" I promise we won't intrude on your celebration, but Lucas would love to chat with Charlotte for a few minutes. Natalie found herself nodding, even as she felt a pang of shame that a stranger could communicate with her daughter more easily than she could. Trevor pulled over chairs for himself and Lucas, and the children immediately launched into animated conversation. Lucas, it turned out, was 10 and had been deaf since age 2 due to meningitis. He attended a school for the deaf across town and was passionate about dinosaurs, swimming, and video games. Charlotte, normally reserved around new people, opened up completely, her hands flying as she told Lucas about her own school, her love of art, and her new puppy at home. "Your ASL is good," Trevor said kindly to Natalie, though she knew he was being generous. "How long have you been learning?" "Since Charlotte was diagnosed at 6 months old," Natalie admitted. "So almost 8 years. I should be better at it by now." Trevor's expression was understanding, not judgmental. "It's hard when you're learning as an adult, especially when you're hearing. Your brain doesn't process it the same way. May I ask, do you use ASL at home?" "When I can," Natalie said, feeling defensive despite Trevor's gentle tone. "I work long hours, and Charlotte has a nanny who's fluent, and an interpreter at school. I do my best, but there's always so much to do, and I'm not..." She trailed off, watching Charlotte laugh at something Lucas had signed. "I'm not enough." "Hey," Trevor said softly. "I didn't mean to make you feel bad. I'm sure you're doing your best." "My best doesn't seem good enough," Natalie said, surprised at her own honesty. "Look at her. She's having an actual conversation, the kind we never have. You communicated more with her in 5 minutes than I have all evening." Trevor was quiet for a moment, watching the children.
"It's okay.
"Can I tell you something?
Together, parents.
When Lucas lost his hearing, I was terrified. I was a single dad. His mom had left when he was a baby, and suddenly my son couldn't hear me, and I didn't know how to reach him. I had 2 choices. I could mourn the relationship I'd thought we'd have, or I could build a new one in the language he needed." "You chose the language," Natalie said. "I did. I quit my job. I was in sales, always traveling, and took a position with regular hours so I could attend ASL classes every evening for a year. I hired deaf tutors to practice with. I immersed myself completely. But you know what the hardest part was?" Natalie shook her head, accepting that I'd never be perfect at it. That there would always be things I missed. Jokes I didn't quite get, nuances I couldn't catch. But I was there, trying, and that mattered to Lucas. That still matters to him. Natalie felt tears pricking her eyes. "I'm so busy trying to give Charlotte everything money can buy. The best schools, the best therapists, every opportunity. But what she really needs is for me to just understand her." "She needs both," Trevor said gently. "The opportunities and the understanding. But the understanding has to come first, because without it, all the money in the world won't help her feel truly seen by her mother." The words hit Natalie like a physical blow, but she knew they were true. Lucas signed something to Trevor, who smiled and nodded. "Lucas is asking if Charlotte would like to come to the Natural History Museum with us tomorrow. They're having a special dinosaur exhibit, if you're comfortable with it, of course." Charlotte's face lit up with hope as Trevor signed the invitation to her. She looked at her mother with such longing that Natalie couldn't possibly say no. "That would be wonderful," Natalie said. "If it's not too much trouble." "No trouble at all," Trevor assured her. "Though fair warning, you'll probably learn more about dinosaurs than you ever wanted to know." The next day, Natalie met Trevor and Lucas at the museum. She'd intentionally cleared her schedule, something she rarely did, determined to be fully present. As they walked through the exhibits, she watched Trevor interact with Lucas, noticing how he made communication look effortless, how he never seemed frustrated or impatient when Lucas asked him to repeat something. But she also noticed that Trevor made mistakes sometimes, missed signs, had to ask Lucas to slow down. The difference was that he didn't let those moments become barriers. He just laughed, asked for clarification, and moved on. During lunch at the museum cafe, while the children were occupied with their chicken nuggets and ongoing conversation about whether T-Rex or Triceratops would win in a fight, Trevor turned to Natalie. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Go ahead," Natalie said. "Why do you look so sad when you watch Charlotte? Even when she's happy, like now, you have this expression like you're mourning something." Natalie was taken aback by his perceptiveness. "I guess I'm mourning the relationship I thought we'd have. The long talks, the bedtime stories read aloud. The mother-daughter connection I'd always imagined. Instead, I have this gap I can't seem to cross. The gap isn't in Charlotte, Trevor said quietly. It's in your expectations. You're trying to force her into the relationship you imagined instead of accepting the relationship she's offering you. Bedtime stories can be signed. Long talks happen with hands instead of voices. The connection is there, Natalie. You're just looking for it in the wrong language. Natalie felt something crack open inside her chest. I don't know if I can learn fast enough. If I can be what she needs. Charlotte doesn't need you to be perfect, Trevor said. She needs you to try. Really try. Not just a few signs here and there when it's convenient, but full immersion. Make ASL the language of your home. Struggle through it. Make mistakes. But be there, present, communicating in her language instead of asking her to always come to yours. Over the next several weeks, Natalie made a decision that shocked her board of directors and business partners. She took a 6-month sabbatical from her company, appointing her COO as interim CEO. She enrolled in intensive ASL classes, attending sessions 3 hours a day. She hired a deaf tutor to live with them for the summer, making their home an ASL-only environment. It was the hardest thing Natalie had ever done. Harder than building her company, harder than any negotiation or merger. Learning to think in a visual language, to express emotions with her hands and face instead of just her voice, to slow down and be patient with herself as she stumbled through conversations with her own daughter. But slowly, something miraculous happened. The gap began to close. Charlotte started coming to Natalie with her stories, her dreams, her worries. They had real conversations, halting and imperfect, but real. Natalie learned to read her daughter's expressions, to understand the nuances of sign that conveyed emotion and tone. She learned Charlotte's sense of humor, her cleverness, her tender heart. And through it all, Trevor was there. He and Lucas had become regular fixtures in their lives, meeting at the park on weekends, having dinners together, attending deaf community events. Trevor offered encouragement when Natalie got frustrated, celebrated her progress, and gently corrected her mistakes without making her feel inadequate. One evening, 4 months into Natalie's sabbatical, she and Trevor sat on her back porch while Charlotte and Lucas played in the yard, their hands flying in rapid conversation punctuated by laughter. "Thank you," Natalie said, signing as she spoke, her new habit. "For that night in the restaurant, for showing me what was possible, for helping me find my way to Charlotte." "You did the work," Trevor said. "I just pointed out the path. It was more than that." Natalie turned to face him. "You showed me what unconditional love looks like. The kind that changes everything about your life to meet someone else where they are. I'd never seen that before. Never understood that love isn't about providing things or solving problems. It's about presence, connection, meeting someone in their world. Instead of demanding they come to yours." Trevor reached for her hand. "Can I tell you something I've been wanting to say for a while now?" Natalie nodded, her heart suddenly racing. "Watching you transform these past months, seeing you embrace Charlotte's world, seeing the relationship bloom between you two, it's been beautiful. But it's also made me realize something. I'm falling for you, Natalie. Not the CEO, not the woman you were trying to be. The real you. The one who makes mistakes in ASL and laughs about it. The one who sits on the floor with the kids working on art projects. The one who's brave enough to change everything for love." Natalie felt tears streaming down her face. "I'm falling for you too," she signed and said. "You and Lucas both. You've given me back my daughter. You've shown me what really matters. And somewhere along the way, you became essential to me." Trevor kissed her gently, and from the yard they heard delighted giggles. Both children were watching them, signing excitedly to each other. "I think we're busted," Trevor laughed. Charlotte ran over, signing rapidly. "Does this mean Lucas will be my brother? Can we be a family? Please, Mama, please!" Natalie looked at her daughter, her beautiful, expressive, wonderful daughter, whose words she could now understand, and felt her heart overflow. "If you want that," she signed carefully, "then yes, I think we could be a family." Charlotte and Lucas erupted in cheers, their hands flying in celebration. A year after that night in the restaurant, Natalie and Trevor stood in a small ceremony with a deaf officiant, speaking their vows in ASL, their voices silent but their hands eloquent. Charlotte and Lucas stood beside them, grinning in matching outfits, having helped plan every detail. I promise to always speak your language, Natalie signed to her new family. To choose presence over perfection, connection over convenience, and love over everything else. I promise to meet you where you are, Trevor signed back. To celebrate our differences and build bridges between our worlds. To remind you daily that the best things in life are worth changing for. That evening in the home they'd all moved into together, Natalie tucked Charlotte into bed, a ritual that had become sacred now that they could truly talk. Mama, Charlotte signed. I'm happy you learned my language. I'm sorry it took me so long, sweetheart, Natalie signed back. It's okay, Charlotte signed. You learned when you were ready, and now we can talk about everything. Everything, Natalie agreed. I love you so much. I love you too, Mama, and I love our family. Natalie kissed her daughter's forehead and turned out the light, standing in the doorway for a moment, watching Charlotte settle into sleep. Trevor found her there, slipping his arm around her waist. Happy? He signed with one hand. More than I ever thought possible, she signed back. Sometimes, Natalie thought, the greatest gifts come wrapped in challenges. Sometimes what looks like loss is actually an invitation to gain something better. And sometimes we have to let go